Hey, everybody.
Hey,
Hey,
we're
we're
live.
back.
Yes,
Oh,
What's that?
here we are. Episode 3, IWR. As always, a plug for the hotline 785-363-5045. Taking calls, taking tips, taking feelings, taking thoughts, taking links, taking whatever's on your mind. Give us a ring. We're there 24/7. What do we got? Where are we at this week? Or today, I should say. Second one this week.
Emily, didn't you have something?
Yeah, today's a weird one. Well, maybe not weird. We'll see. So I was on TikTok, and there's an account on TikTok that's run by Michelle Ann Titler, and she had some really interesting things to say about March 4th, which I would love to read with you guys. But yeah, so this is a bit of a transcript. I won't read the whole thing 'cause it's quite in depth, but I'll give you a little taste of it. So it starts out with, a peaceable transition is coming. Trump is not going to be sworn in because the 45th president of America in January 20. Okay. Trump will take workplace because the 19th president of America on March 4th beneath this restored republic. So I think what that's trying to say essentially is that there is going to be some type of inauguration on March 4th, and that Trump will be inaugurated. It says, continues on and says, if Biden, Harris, Pence, Pelosi, and so forth are arrested for his or her crimes earlier than January 20, there shall be nobody to imagine the presidency. Since Trump has not been licensed because the presidential winner by Congress, he can't stay president. And it kind of goes on at the end to say that essentially suggests that like only inaugurations on March 4th are legitimate. And then at the end, it kind of says the final president elected earlier than American grew to become an organization of Ulysses S. Grant, Republic Restored. So I think the idea here is that there hasn't been a proper transition of presidential power since Ulysses S. Grant, which happened on the correct date of March 4th. I've never heard of March 4th as being the inauguration date. I've always noticed January 20th. So I thought this would be an interesting one for us to go through together.
This
So,
is helpful.
This
question
is a lot.
is
Yeah.
basically, will Trump be president on March 4th?
Trump
I mean, I've heard this too. You know, it's come up, especially after January 6th. There's been a lot of more attention to rumors like this in mainstream press. So that's actually how I heard this, was in mainstream press, because the Capitol is being the National Guard still deployed to the Capitol until then, because they're afraid of violence at the Capitol. So that's why I heard about this rumor as well.
Yeah, makes sense. I saw some. I mean, I don't know if it makes sense yet. We're going to explore that, but I did see some folks on Reddit talking about the possibility of the inauguration actually happening on March 4th, and
So wait a minute.
like, what is an inauguration? Like,
well, right. That was my question. Is we're recording this on February 19th, and we all saw what happened on January 20th. So what was that, if not the inauguration?
Right. So I think my first question or rabbit hole for us to go down is like, what, like, is there any historical reference of March 4th being the inauguration date for American presidents?
All right.
And then I would also ask to follow that up, just like the next line of questioning would be, what does it take for a president to be inaugurated?
Right. That's a good question too. So in
Before
searching like
1870s.
totally. So in searching like March 4th inauguration, there's a lot of stuff about this conspiracy theory, but there's also, I think, some interesting historical stuff about inaugurations generally. And so maybe I'm just going to search like history of inauguration day.
But also, it said
Yeah.
really quick in one of those searches that there was an inauguration in 1913, and until the ratification of the which amendment, like it actually, even after that 1871 date that the rumor had mentioned, like it seems
Interesting.
like March 4th was an inauguration date even after that like legitimate president started. So
That's
they're
interesting.
like two different, these are like apples and oranges, you know?
That's really interesting. So, well, here's an interesting one. Check this out, actually. So here's another thing on this March 4th date. The March 4th date seems important because it's when the United States government first began operating on March 4th, 1789. And it's my guess is, and that was the day of George Washington's first inauguration. So I'm going to guess that that was just initially when we started doing things. That's kind of when the clock set, right? And so that continued, but then, clearly at some point that changed to January 20th. So maybe we can just say, when did inauguration day change?
It says in that first search result, if you go back one more, today in history, the 20th Amendment, when it was passed in 1933, changed the date of presidential inaugurations.
I don't see that.
If you scroll to the top.
I mean, so like,
Yeah,
go ahead.
20th Amendment in 1933.
I see. Until the ratification. There you go. Got it. Yep.
When the fourth fell on a Sunday, as it did in 1821, 1849, 1877, and 1917, they were on March 5th. So yeah, that's kind of interesting. So it wasn't until 1933 that we started having presidential inaugurations on what it seems like January 20th.
January 20th, right. But I mean, so like, I'm looking back here. I'll post this in our pad. So I'm looking at an article on the architect of the Capitol, so AOC.gov. Where is our pad? There's our pad.
AOC.gov sounds very conspiratorial.
So here's this. So I'm posting this link. So it basically, what you see here is it goes through. If you scroll down, it sort of gives you the dates.
What does this stand for, by the way? Architect of the Capitol.
Okay, yeah, architect of the Capitol. So it's just all the days where it sort of shows. So you had, looks like, yeah, I mean, maybe I've already said this, but it looks like FDR in 1933 was inaugurated on March 4th. And then the following year, he was the first president, his second term, he was the first president to be inaugurated on the January 20th date. So from
this is great.
So from FDR's second term on, the date shifted to January 20th. And then the question that I had with this is, what makes an official inauguration? What is the actual, what is the sort of moment for which a president is sort of becomes president, And so, I
think that's super interesting. But what I wanted to note just before we move on to the question, which I think is the next step, is that there are a bunch of different days listed here in this ledger. I've seen January, I've seen August, I've seen April. Maybe those, right? So it seems like the date really hasn't. It's not even been consistently March 4th. It seems.
Right. Well, it was, before that, if they had to inaugurate a president midterm because someone died. Here's one. William McKinley famously died at the World's Fair in 1901. He didn't actually die there, but he had a stroke or something like that at the World's Fair. And then, Theodore Roosevelt had to be sworn in. So you're right. There's nothing that says it has to be on March 4th. Or anything like that, or that's the official date. It's happened on all kinds of different days.
But it does say, but if you scroll to the top of this article, it says at the very beginning, in the second paragraph, it says the 20th Amendment of the Constitution specifies that the term of each elected president of the United States begins at noon on January 20th of the year following the election. Right. Each president must take the oath of office before assuming the duties of the position.
So hold up. Does that mean that they don't believe, whoever's starting this rumor, that they don't believe in these amendments to the Constitution?
Well, and taking that even one step further, the next paragraph here says that Donald Trump was inaugurated, I believe, on January 20th, 2017, correct? So if they don't believe in these amendments, why does Donald Trump have any claim, to be president.
I mean,
Well, I think
it is
just
questionable.
logically.
Right. I mean, it's questionable to have, like, if Garth Brooks sings a song at inauguration, like that may be, cause for
All right,
concern.
all right.
But
So
like,
what is the
I'm
actual?
just,
You're asking, like, what is the actual mechanism that transfers power?
yeah. When does it happen?
From
What's the
when-
moment? Did it happen? Did the official transfer of power sort of happen? Because I saw Biden put his hand on a big ass book, and like, it seemed like that was a thing that happened.
Here is an answer to your question from, we'll see, as.com, archives.gov. Lots of different sources have it. We can.
Something about there was one a little bit earlier up that said like peaceful transition of power.
Yeah, that's from the National Archives. So let's just take a look at this. Well, it's from Trump to Biden, so maybe we'll just look at a more general one. So this is from the National Archives. This is the people who keep all the records for the country. And let's see. It talks about this. It says the official ceremony has not always been on January 20th. It talks about the 12th Amendment we were just talking about.
The 20th.
That's right. It also says here the location of the inaugural ceremony has moved around, right? So it doesn't have to take place on any particular in any particular place. Let me zoom in just to make it easier for all of us to read. This is interesting. There's tradition.
Parades.
I mean,
sure, but it doesn't say exactly when it happens.
So I just posted an article in the pad, and
it says here, this oath makes an ordinary citizen the president.
Oh, interesting. Okay, this inauguration, a ceremonial election office, symbolically brings together all three branches of government. The ceremony includes the swearing in of the president as well as the presidential address to the nation. Where was the?
It's the last sentence.
I'm that's right. The swearing in ceremony allows for the peaceful transition of power. It formally gives the power to the people, to the person who's been chosen to lead. This oath, yep, right there, makes an ordinary citizen a president. And is that what your article had said, dude?
Well, no, I was just sort of, doubling down on the section 1 of the 20th Amendment that says the terms of the president and vice president shall end at noon on the 20th day of January, and the terms of senators and representatives at noon on the 3rd day of January of the years in which such terms would have ended if this article had not been ratified, and the terms of their successors shall begin. So, I mean, yeah, it sounds like it's in the Constitution that the presidency begins on January 20th.
That's right, and it actually starts at this moment, as Emily said. This oath makes an ordinary citizen a president.
So it's like when Biden put his hand on that big book in front of who was he in front of this time?
Book is called the Bible.
Oh, the Bible. I mean, okay, that's cool. I should read that. I should
choose which book that you would like to swear in on. So
right.
If you're an atheist, you could choose something. If you're a Christian, you could choose.
So I could do like a cookbook if I wanted to, if I was president.
If you are an atheist, or you just really love Julia Childs and you want to swear on her cookbook.
Yeah, got it. I think the Bible is beautiful, though. I think that I think it looked weathered. It looked like it had stood the test of time.
It's a beautiful book. But so anyhow, so that's when it happened, right? And according to the Constitution, it happens on January 20th. It happened on January 20th. Biden took the oath. Therefore he becomes the next president. So the question I have is, where is this March 4th thing coming from then? If we know that the Constitution says September 20th, the March 4th thing is from the past. Where's that happening?
What happened in 1871 that made these folks think that the country is somehow illegitimate after that point?
So let's go back to this.
March 4th, 1871.
Well, why don't we look at the history of the 20th Amendment?
Well, the 20th Amendment was way after 1871, right? I think Emily's point is, let's go back and see what they're talking about here, right? The nation ceased to be a nation and became an organization belonging to the metropolis of London. So I might just search 1871, metropolis of London, United States, and just see what we find. there.
Treaty of Washington?
Maybe.
About right. Yeah, let's look that up.
Ulysses S. Grant, that was the
Huh?
person. Okay. And again, Wikipedia, don't know, take it with some grain of salt, but it's usually pretty good and cites its sources.
It inaugurated permanent peaceful relations between the U.S. and Canada, the U.S. and Britain. And it also Britain paid the United States $15 million to end the land dispute, basically. All right. I mean,
So in our notes, I just put why the 20th Amendment was drafted, like a link to that. Because I was just trying to think, like, historically, why did they, at so many years past the inauguration of the first president, decide to write and pass an amendment, which is a really high burden. Like, how could they function for so long? And it seems like there's something about a lame duck session when Congress meets after an election and there's like issues with voting power. So it seemed like
it was just too long between like November
Yeah.
and March.
Well, I think originally, you know, the Congress people had to get back to Washington and conclude up all the business after the election, and they were, you know, using horse and buggy to get there and then train, and it was just a lot harder to get back to Washington, so they needed a lot of time, right? It could sometimes take months to get back to Washington. So I think that's part of this, right?
yeah, so it says here, this guaranteed that the last session of a Congress would be it would last from December 1st until March 4th. And the session's length meant that Congress couldn't conduct meaningful business on financial matters. And also politicians weren't accountable to voters. So then the 20th Amendment basically fixed that issue so that politicians could be held more accountable and that things could happen sooner in the year so that there wasn't this needless delay.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
So we should out the 20th Amendment, but like, what about that 1871?
I mean,
Totally.
hold up. I think what this is trying to say is that
What is trying to say?
this note that we read. I mean, this 1871, this 1871 bit. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like each time you see an American flag with a gold fringe connected to it, it represents the company, not the nation. And then, you know, it basically, it's like, it goes down. And so there's this idea that I don't actually know what that means, to be honest with you. But like what this seems to be saying is that if there isn't any president on January 20th, the company, often known as America, of America shall be dissolved. So the sort of premise of this is that like, did an inauguration take place on January 20th? And if it hasn't taken place by January 20th, then the country is dissolved. And then that gives room for a new president, possibly Trump, to sort of retake office on this actual inauguration day of March 4th. Like, I think I guess what I'm saying is I think what's being contested is just like, did an inauguration actually take place on January 20th? And
That is yes, because
to me, it seems like it has taken place. And so all of the other arguments that are sort of listed out here seem to be contingent upon an inauguration not actually taking place on the January 20th. And
That's
so...
And I also hear what you're saying, Duke. And if we just use our common sense,
yeah,
basically, if you believe that the country stopped being a country in more or less,
1871, for whatever reason. Yeah.
Why would it even matter that Donald Trump would reclaim presidency on March 4th just because of that date? Because wouldn't you still have to like win the Electoral College and like get the votes of people? Because in that case, there was no election. The election was illegitimate. The inauguration was illegitimate. And the past 100 years, 150 years of American history were completely illegitimate. So if you're just trying to look for like a very convenient date to like have a good narrative to back up the belief that, you know, the United States isn't the United States and we're going to like have a redo, like a do-over, like,
right.
sure, that's a great day for like a do-over, but Yeah, I just don't think that this is in any way real. And I'm sure if the United States were a corporation in like 1871, more people would have been, we would have heard about it.
Yeah, and I'm picking up what you're putting down. I think even if that was even if that had actually happened, if we were to sort of look at this another way, it's in order for it to have actually, for there even to be a possibility of an inauguration happening on March 4th, it means that the Constitution would have had to have been changed, because it did say it in the Constitution that it does happen on January 20th. And I had to have been hallucinating on January 20th, because I saw Biden on television with his hand on the Bible getting sworn in by someone from the Supreme Court. And I did see Garth Brooks for sure. That definitely happened. He looked right at me. I swear it felt like that. But it did seem to happen. And based on what we said or what we saw here, it's like it's in the Constitution. It happens on the 20th. It happens at 12 p.m. with the hand on the Bible. He says some stuff, and he becomes president, or Biden became president on that day.
Right.
And so
Right.
it's
I'm with,
I mean, it's kind of, yeah.
Duke, I'm with you on this one, and with you. I mean, my takeaway on this is, you might not want for Joe Biden to have become president. You might have wanted Trump to remain in office, and that's fine. But that didn't happen, and all of this about March 4th in 1871 is looking for reasons to just sort of avoid what happened, right? More so than anything that there's actually a legal basis to, right? It just kind of feels like that to me.
Yeah, I mean, I agree obviously with what everyone's saying. I think the thing that is resonating for me is I've never heard this March 4th date before. And I basically feel like, where is this coming out? Why is this a problem now? Why wasn't it a problem March 4th of, 2016? Why is it a problem in 2021? And if we really reflect on that, if there is this overarching question that people have about whether the date of January 20th is the date of the inauguration, like, why haven't we addressed it in the last 150 years?
Right. It's like the thunder rolled and the lightning struck, and it happened on January 20th.
And even if you believe that there is voter fraud, at a certain point, like, the powers that be still rolled forward, and there's a presumption of innocence until proven guilty. We tried to take things to court, it didn't pan out, and regardless of how you feel, that's how the mechanisms of our system work. That's how our Constitution works, and that's really hard for some people and really great for other people in this instance. Yeah.
Awesome.
I just shared a link to the Garth Brooks song.
From the inauguration?
No, just the thunder rolls.
Got it. I think that should be our outro today, because the TLDR on this is basically we can find a lot of convenient dates in American history to tell very interesting stories about ourselves.
But when the thunder rolls and the lightning strikes.
And with that, I think we're out. Duke, you want to say that number one more time?
Oh, that number is 785-363-5045. We're there 24/7. Give us a call, send a link, tell us how you feel. Until next time.
Bye.
Bye.